Alicia, a young black waitress, her neat uniform crisp, her braided hair tied back, and her ever-present smile brightening even the grumpiest customers' evenings. She had been working here for 3 years, long enough to know which regulars tipped well, which ones snapped their fingers rudely, and which ones came in only when they wanted to flaunt their wealth. But tonight felt different. Something in the air carried a strange heaviness, though she couldn't quite place it. As Alicia approached a table near the large window, she noticed a couple stepping inside. The man was tall, sharply dressed in a tailored gray suit, his jaw tight as if permanently clenched. His eyes scanned the room like a predator scoping out prey. Walking slightly behind him was a woman, slender, graceful, and wearing a pale blue dress that shimmered under the chandelier's glow. Her hands clutched her purse a little too tightly, knuckles pale against the leather strap. Alicia's instinct kicked in immediately. She looks nervous, and he looks controlling. "Good evening, sir, ma'am," Alicia greeted politely, stepping forward with her professional smile. "Do you have a reservation with us tonight?" The man's voice was sharp, curt. "Yes. Table under the name Richard Coleman." Alicia nodded, quickly finding their name in the book. "Of course, right this way." She guided them toward one of the more private booths, tucked away from the chatter of the main floor. Couples often requested it for intimacy, but Alicia knew this corner could also hide tensions from prying eyes. Richard pulled out the chair for himself first and sat down heavily, leaving his wife to awkwardly seat herself. Alicia caught the slight flicker of hurt in the woman's eyes before she quickly masked it with a forced smile. "So this is how it is," Alicia thought quietly. She'd seen this dynamic before, men who controlled every glance, every movement, while their partners shrank into themselves. As she handed them menus, Richard barely looked up. "Bring us a bottle of your best red, quickly." "Yes, sir." Alicia turned, but not before catching the woman's soft whisper. "I'd actually prefer—" "Don't contradict me, Emily," Richard snapped under his breath, his eyes narrowing dangerously. "Red wine, that's final." Emily's lips pressed into a thin line. She nodded, saying nothing more. Alicia's chest tightened. She had grown up watching her mother endure the same sharp tone from her stepfather, a tone that silenced rooms and carved fear into skin. For a moment, memories threatened to spill back, but she steadied herself. "I can't interfere. I'm just their server. Do your job, Alicia." Still, when she returned with the wine, she poured carefully, her eyes meeting Emily's for a fleeting second. Emily gave her a tiny, grateful look, as if even that brief kindness meant more than words. Dinner unfolded tensely. Richard dominated the conversation, speaking loudly about business deals, expensive cars, and vacations. Emily nodded politely, but Alicia noticed her fingers fiddling with the napkin, twisting it into tight knots. When she tried to speak, Richard either interrupted or dismissed her words entirely. At one point, Alicia overheard him growl, "Honestly, Emily, you embarrass me." "Can't you just sit there and look pretty?" Alicia froze mid-step, her blood boiling. She wanted to slam the wine bottle on the table and tell him off. But she forced her expression to remain neutral, reminding herself that management wouldn't tolerate a scene. Yet, as the evening dragged on, Alicia couldn't shake the feeling that Emily's silence was more than just compliance. It was survival. Later, while clearing a nearby table, Alicia caught sight of Emily subtly wiping a tear with her napkin. Richard was too busy scrolling through his phone to notice, or maybe he simply didn't care. That was when Alicia made a decision. If she couldn't confront Richard directly, she could at least let Emily know she wasn't invisible. As she approached their table again, she leaned slightly closer to Emily while pretending to check the cutlery. In the softest whisper, she said, "Are you okay?" Emily blinked rapidly, startled. For a second, Alicia feared she'd said too much. But then Emily gave the tiniest nod, her lips trembling. Richard glanced up. "Is there a problem?" No, sir, Alicia replied smoothly, straightening. Just making sure everything is to your liking. Emily excused herself from the table, her voice trembling slightly. Richard, I... I need to use the restroom. Richard barely looked up from his glass of wine and muttered, Don't take too long. Emily stood, her steps unsteady as she made her way to the washroom. Inside, she closed the door and let out a shaky breath. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing the bruises that painted her arms in deep purples and sickening blues. Her reflection in the mirror almost startled her. Eyes red, lips trembling, a face marked by years of silent suffering. The door creaked open. Alicia had followed, her instincts too strong to ignore. Emily, she whispered. Emily froze. She tried to tug her sleeve down, but Alicia had already seen. Her eyes widened in horror. My God, he did this to you. Tears welled in Emily's eyes, spilling silently down her cheeks. She didn't answer, but the silence was enough. Alicia's heart pounded as anger and compassion collided inside her. She pulled her phone from her pocket, her hands trembling but firm. Listen to me, Alicia said softly, holding Emily's shoulders. You don't have to go back out there. Not tonight. Not ever. I'm calling the police. Emily shook her head in panic. No, please, if he finds out. Alicia pressed her hand gently over Emily's. Enough. He's not going to hurt you again. Trust me. Within moments, Alicia had dialed. Her voice was steady, controlled as she explained the situation. The dispatcher assured her help was on the way. Back in the dining hall, Richard was impatiently tapping the table when two uniformed officers entered the restaurant. The chatter of wealthy guests hushed instantly, all eyes turning. Richard Anderson? One officer asked firmly. Richard's arrogant smirk faded as the officers approached. Alicia emerged from the hallway, walking beside Emily, who clung to her arm like a child clings to safety. The entire restaurant watched as Richard's polished image cracked under the weight of the truth. Sir, you're under arrest for domestic assault, the officer declared. Gasps echoed through the hall. Richard tried to protest, but his words fell flat. The cuffs clicked shut around his wrists. Emily stood silently, her body trembling but her spirit beginning to breathe again. Alicia looked at her, her voice warm and certain. You're safe now. This ends tonight. For the first time in years, Emily managed a small, fragile smile, one that hinted at freedom, healing, and a life that finally belonged to her.